Welcome to the Transformation Perspective, episode 8 on immigration, not called the immigration system. Yes, I've been gone for almost 2 weeks. I took the week off for the Labor Day weekend to kind of rest and get recharged. And, school's going on right now. So let's dive right into this third part of the series of immigration. Um, but first, a couple headlines as we move through this. So, the election, as of today, being September 5th, 2024, we are officially 2 months away from the election, right? November 5th is the election day. Early voting begins in a few states in 2 weeks' time. We have a presidential debate between Harris and Trump on Tuesday night, I do believe on ABC. Also in the headlines, Trump and Harris laid out their economic plans. You can look back at my previous episodes. You can compare what they've proposed with my episodes on the economy being the number one issue and see where that falls. Also, part of this economic plan that they've got in there, a big hot topic that's being talked about is the no tax on tips. Both candidates are proposing it. Trump proposed it first. Harris followed up. There are economists on both sides, Republican, conservative, and more liberal economists, saying this is probably not the best idea. Um, no offense to anybody who's a waiter or waitress or works for tips. I commend you. We need you to be out there doing that job. I appreciate everything you do. It's just the economic aspects behind tip. It sets you up for not good economic aspects later on if people don't want to tip or they're not feeling generous to tip or when wages go and we hit a recession and we don't have that extra income to tip. And if the tip workers are reliant on that and Americans just stop tipping or don't want to tip as much, their salaries start to begin to hurt. So that plays in a major factor. So economists consider that as well as where's that extra money that's lost for federal revenue is going to be made up. So there's a couple of things there. Um, so also big headlines is school shooting in Georgia. Um, Very tragic being an educator. I really worry about that aspect of safety for myself as well as my students. And that shouldn't be on the burden of teachers in itself. And once again, we're going to have this wonderful debate of gun regulations and nothing will be done. But I'm going to get back to that when related to how strict our immigration system is. And maybe we should take a book out of immigration for possibly gun regulation or gun regulation reform or just reform aspects in general to maybe limit or stop these from happening. So let's dive into today's episode, all about the immigration system. So the first question I propose is what is the US immigration system and how does it actually work? It's actually a very complex system, as you can think of. Um, here's what some of the logistics that we've got here. The U.S. allows up to 675,000 permanent immigrant visas are granted each year, but that number is set by Congress and by the president. So obviously, this number can go up or this number can go down. How many immigrants are going to be applying for visas? With that, there is no limit on annual admission of U.S. citizens and for their spouses or their parents or children under 21. So that is, I do believe, an H4 dependent visa that comes into factor as well. Don't quote me on that. I might be wrong. A lot of research. Things are a little jumbled. Um, but you can bring your family. There's no limit on that. So one person applies. right? An immigrant who is granted this visa finally, okay, gone through that wonderful process of all the paperwork, all the wait time, all that great stuff I'm going to get to, right, can then apply to become a lawful permanent resident, otherwise known as an LPR, or what some people know as the green card, right? So the green card aspect, once you arrive upon this, let me start again. Upon arrival, in the US, immigrants become an LPR. Then they can eventually apply for citizenship, the naturalization process. But that is 3 to 5 years after you've come and you've been in America. So here's the other thing. In quote here from the source of American Immigration Council is, in order to qualify for US citizenship through the naturalization, an individual must have had an LPR status or a green card, right, for at least 5 years, or 3 years if the green card was obtained through US citizen spouse or through the Violence Against Women's Act. Okay, so it's a long process to become a citizen. The process is also long just to get here as an immigrant, and then the process is even still longer to become a citizen. Maybe you're wondering, why such a complex system? And that's kind of the question I was wondering when I was doing all this research. So here's some common challenges in the immigrant naturalization process that they face with, which makes it very difficult, and why we probably need to reform. If we don't like the word reform, amend. How about that word? Amend. How we do the naturalization process. So, some of the difficulties, language difficulties, and maybe some of you out there might be like, wait a minute, they should know English because this is America. Okay, stop with that formality. For one, America is one of the few countries, if not the only country, it seems like, in the developed world who does not have a second language, because we say English and that's it, even though we have a diverse amount of different languages, but we required everyone to know English. But if you go to any other countries, they require you to learn the native language, English, and probably another language on top of that. So they are duolingual, trilingual, quadlingual, not here in the United States. So the language barrier becomes one of the number one issues that they face. Money issues is the second one. One, they might not have the income because, one, the application is very expensive. I think I saw on there somewhere around $800, close to $800, somewhere between $700 and $800 is the application fee. That's not just chump change lying around. On top of that, they have to go through medical testing, which is probably they have to pay out of their own pocket. Oh, and all their fees that they have to do. Don't have the exact quote numbers for you, but once again, a heavy process on top of what they had to pay to get here as an immigrant. The money keeps flowing, and they don't make the money to have it flow to pay for this stuff. So the third complication is the paperwork. The paperwork is an extremely complicated process. Okay, I'm going to propose this one for you. If you just got a new job and you have to fill out your W-2s or your insurance or trying to get insurance or your retirement, that's complicated enough. All right. Think about what an immigrant has to go through in the process to apply for citizenship. It's way more complex. I'll just be real with you. Right. So, one, if you don't know the legal terms that are within these documents that you're reading, you get really confused. Heck, even the legal terms in like W-2s and your tax reform, tax return stuff, and insurance, like what does this mean? Yeah, that's even confusing. So imagine, I'm just trying to do the comparison, right? So imagine though trying to lead legal terms about applying for citizenship. I'm almost out of time off of TikTok, so catch the rest of the episode on my YouTube channel for transformation perspective. So, continuing what I was saying. So The legal terms is half the battle. Then making sure all the right documents are put together to prevent delays or denials. This one comes to mind of maybe going to the DMV. Oh, you don't have this form. You forgot your birth certificate. You got to do this. You got to do that. Come back again. Wait, I took a day off of work to get all this done. Yeah. See that's the aspect. So legal terms in documentation, making sure every I is dotted, every T is crossed, every form is there. That is the big key. So with that, you have long wait times. So the next aspect, I believe this is the fourth one of how challenges that they could face as naturalization, is the long wait times. America, we don't like waiting for anything. All right. That's part of it. So here now you have immigrants coming in, right? The long wait times. The process takes a long time, creating uncertainty in planning life and waiting for approval or denial. Heck, I get nervous when I'm applying for a job. I'm like, "Oh, man, I can't plan. What am I going to do? I can't take this step. I can't I can't look for housing until I get a job. So I'm stuck in this limbo. Imagine being stuck in limbo for an incredibly long period of time, waiting for that approval or denial. Heck, 1 week, 2 weeks waiting for a job offer seems like an eternity in itself. Imagine longer than that, 6, 7 year, 18 months waiting for the approval, sitting there waiting. Okay. It creates a lot of uncertainty. It creates a lot of stress in the family. Another one, adjusting to the culture. So you have these LPRs, or the green card citizens, right? Permanent residency. They also have to adjust to the culture. And once again, you hear this terminology. Well, it's America. You better adjust. Okay. All right. Back this bus up a second. You go to a foreign country because let's just say you don't like the United States and how it's being run because of all the conservatives or all the liberals. So you're like, I'm leaving. So you go to a foreign country, you don't know the language, you don't know the culture, and you're like, well, I'm America. I'm American, my bad there. All right, I'm American, so I'm entitled to. No, you need to assimilate or adjust to that new culture. It isn't easy, right? There's a lot of hardships. The language barrier is part of that, right? Customs, traditions, and the list goes on for cultural aspects alone. The other one, the last factor of making it a challenge for naturalization process is the limited amount of information. Like, wait a minute, can't you just go on the website and find out about this? Well, remember, the lack of education on this knowledge plays a factor. Like, how do I become a citizen if I'm an immigrant? And then you sit here and what's the process? So it's a hard time getting the right information for the naturalization process. Remember, it goes back to the complicated paperwork. What are legal terms? What does this mean? I don't know what this means. Do you know what this means? No. If there's a language barrier, it makes it even more complicated. As a teacher who has had ELL students, the language barrier is incredibly difficult. And as a teacher who's not bilingual, and I really wish I was and I had time to become bilingual, I feel for my students that have come to this country that don't know English, are trying to learn in the classroom, and you can see the frustration on their faces. They feel like failures. They're not failures. They're having a hard time adjusting. Now put that in the perspective of an American doing the same thing, going to another country, uprooting your family, going there, hoping for something better. I don't know what they're teaching me in school. My students are lost because of the language barrier. I don't know how to fill out these documents because I don't understand the language. Have some compassion. Self-compassion, grace goes a long way in these aspects. All right, so that's the naturalization process when you become a permanent resident as an immigrant or your green card. So let's look at the whole process in itself. So that's a long wait time, 3 to 5 years, 5 years basically to get your naturalization citizenship. And that process is long in itself. But now we have a process to get here. So here's the question that I proposed. What is the process for applying for a visa? Thanks, Harper, for the question that you're asking here. Because first thing, check if you need a visa. Okay, yeah, I'm not from America, so I'm coming to America. Okay, got it. Choose the type of visa. What kind of visa types are there? Ah, that's another good question, and that's what we're going to get to as well. So, the next step is fill in the non immigrant visa application form DS 160. Yeah, you see that look on my face right now? That language is confusing to me, and I'm an American citizen, right? Part one of the DS 160 is a personal information that you have to fill out. Okay. All that stuff, demographic, your background, all that great stuff. Part two of the DS 160 is a security and background information, which is another extensive process. I'm sure we've all gone through background checks for applying for jobs, right? That's step three. Step four, pay your US visa application fee. Seems easy enough until you look at the cost. It starts to add up, right? This can range from $185 to $315, which is non refundable, regardless if it is approved or refused. You refused because maybe you forgot something. You didn't cross a T or dot an I. So, therefore, you now have to start the process all over again. So, then what? Okay. You don't get that money back. You have to reapply. So, you could also be asked to pay for U.S. Issuance fees. Like, what is a U.S. Issuance fee? Thanks for asking that question, Harper. These fees are based on the principle of, I'm going to slaughter this word. I'm really sorry. Reciprocity, which is when a foreign government imposes fees on U.S. citizens for certain types of visas, the U.S. will impose a reciprocal fee on citizens of what the country's area or authority for similar types of visas. Okay, I'm sorry. I got to add this 2 cents in there. This is like someone, like students saying, well, they hit me first, so I hit them back. Really? So we want to make it more difficult for people? I don't write the laws. Right? Step 5, applying for immigration visa. Schedule a U.S. visa interview. Wait a minute. Now I got to go through an interview process? I just applied for immigration. Don't they just process it? What am I, applying for a job kind of thing? Well, here we go. So how long does this take to get an interview in the U.S. Embassy? Because, yes, you do have to go to the U.S. Embassy and do the interview process. The process doesn't take long. 30 minutes to apply for the interview. Ah, piece of cake, right? That's awesome. However, the wait time can be ridiculous. So here, 3 categories that you're applying for visas, right? Student exchange. Okay, you want to study in the United States, student exchange. This can take, depending on your country, 1 to 322 days. Also depending on your city, right? So country and city depending on this wait time. So that's almost a year potentially. If you apply for a petition-based temporary workers visa, this is 1 day to 345 days, depending on the city and country. So once again, up to a year. And this is not to get your visa. This is just to get your interview with the U.S. Embassy. You've already gone through the process of filing all the paperwork. You got to interview yet. If you are a crew or transit visa, this is even longer. This is 1 to 869 days, depending on your city and country. That's over 2 years just for the interview. Why so long? And if you want to be a visitor, right, it's also 1 to 869 days, depending on your city and country. It's a long wait process, everybody. So, in that aspect, let's look at the southern border and the countries that are coming over here and some of those wait times that you've got in those countries. However, remember, some of those immigrants may not know that process. And you're saying, oh, they're illegally coming across. Do they know the immigration system and how complicated it is in the United States? They might. They absolutely might. That's valid. But at the same time, they might not have the wait time to do that. They're desperate to get out of whatever situation they're in. Remember, push and pull factors. Look at that previous episode. The top Latin American and South American countries arriving at the southern border, wait time for an interview at the U.S. Embassy. Mexico is 1 day to 37 days. Guatemala, another big area they're coming from, 7 to 8 days. Venezuela, not applicable. Cuba, not applicable. Ecuador, 2 to 78 days having to wait for an interview. Colombia, 4 to 11 days waiting for the interview. So when you add in fees, process, is it going to be denied? Now you need to wait for the interview. That is just getting for your approval. My next question that I propose for you, right, is what is the humanitarian parole immigration? Because this one has come up. You've seen this in politicians of their argument. We need more humanitarian parole aspects out there as well. So humanitarian, unquote here from my source. The source is from American Immigration Council. And quote, humanitarian parole is a long-standing executive authority which allows certain individuals to enter the United States, even though they may not meet the definition of refugee and may not be eligible to immigrate through other channels. End quote from my source of American Immigration Council. So it's a long-standing approach for individuals to come here. They can't meet the refugee aspects. Other aspects, unquote, from the American Immigration Council, individuals who enter the country through humanitarian parole are not on path to permanent status. That means they cannot get that green card. If a person granted parole wishes to remain in the country long term, they must generally apply for and obtain a different immigration status. Psst. I just told you the long, incredible process that's involved in that. Okay. So those granted parole may generally apply for work authorization for the duration of their parole. So while they're waiting for the other visa, maybe that's the green card, they can apply for a work visa. And my quote from the American Immigration Council. All right. So these processes are long, like more humanitarian, but these processes, that's long in itself too. Another question that I want to propose of the push-pull factors that take place here. What are the socioeconomic issues of immigrants in Latin America? All right. So poverty, number one. Immigrants from South America have a poverty rate of 13% compared to 12% of the nation. So that's when they get here. They're already in poverty, and it's probably one of the factors that they come to the United States. But then they have incredible poverty, higher poverty rates in the United States. Acculturation. This is that assimilation to American culture. That's another thing that they have to work through is from their socioeconomic backgrounds from there. Education. So a lot of them are probably lower educated individuals coming to the um, United States. Also, they have to adjust to the U.S. education system. Here's a quote from my source, Immigration Policy. In 2021, approximately 52% of Mexican immigrants aged 25 and older lacked a high school diploma or equivalent, that's the GED, right? Compared to 26% of foreign born adults and 7% of the US adults. Remember what I said? They have a harder time adapting to the education system in the United States because of a language barrier. You can't point the finger at them, right? We need to do a better job in our education system. And that's a whole different topic in itself, right? Other thing, finding housing, finding employment, social functionality. They no longer have the support network of their family, right? They could have financial stress because of the previous one. Employment, not finding a job on time, or no one wants to hire them, or the risk of being hired. Uh, Communities that they're in, the perception that they have of human rights or decent human rights of these immigrants that they should have. That's the other factor that plays in there, right? Let me just turn my camera. I'm running out of light here outside. Hopefully that helps just a little bit. Sorry about that, everybody. So that's half the battle right there. Adjusting then to different roles and responsibilities in their community and their family members that they're not accustomed to based on their culture. All right. If you don't understand what culture is, it's not the same across everywhere in the world. And you say you got to adjust to the US culture. No, that's not how these people work. All right. It's a hard time adjusting. Heck, adjusting to a new job, moving to a new city. That's an adjustment too. Think about what they're going through. Have a little empathy, have a little grace, have a little self-compassion for them, right? Other thing, here's a proposal that is being made of these social functional aspects that immigrants have to face. Proposed solution is education or an intervention for immigrants. If you're a teacher, you know what intervention is. And yeah, we definitely need to fix those kind of aspects too. But education, now the whole topic, we need to make some adjustments. So struggles with literacy. Yeah, of course they struggle with literacy. Okay, they might be proficient in readers in their language, but when it comes to English, they're not proficient. So being able to understand the material causes a big struggle. So English language and understanding the U.S. immigration system and the laws in the U.S., that is part of the issue. It's complicated. They don't understand the language. It makes it complicated. You go to a foreign country and try to figure out their immigration system, and you don't understand their language. You don't speak it. Trying to get to the closing marks here. All right. Last thing that I got for you is, what are work visas, or better known as the H-1B visas? This information I got from the American Immigration Council. So, last thing, an H-1B is a temporary non-immigrant visa, right? Allows employers to petition for, I'm going to unquote here, highly educated, all right, foreign professionals that require a bachelor's degree. Well, what do you say? Wait a minute, aren't they taking American jobs? Well, there's rules and regulations along that, so they don't discriminate against actually U.S. citizens applying for those jobs. So some of the, hold on, gotta find my spot again. It's getting dark. I'm sorry about this. Allows employees to petition, like I said that right. That's what I mean. It's getting dark. Some fields include mathematics, engineering, technology, and medical. So basically STEM, right? STEM fields of a job employment. Those are kind of the key aspects. Like I said, there's rules and regulations. It's a 3-year visa for work visa, and it can be extended to 6 years, right? Also, if there are more registrations for the H-1B visas, all right, it goes to a lottery system, right? I think last year they said somewhere around like over 770,000 applicants applied, and then they had to cut it down to like 750 some thousand. Okay. With that, also H-1B employees can bring their families with them and their spouses and children under age 21. This is the H4 non-immigrant status, right? So these are all the documentations that everybody has to go through. It's a long, long process. When the argument is out there, is like, make a pathway to citizenship. Well, it's a 5-year process and then some. It's a complicated. There are some countries, a year, could be a couple months. We have a very complicated system to apply for citizenship. So there's part of that issue. The legal documentations, everything that goes with that is complicated. I'm going to piggyback off of the headlines of the school shooting here. This is where I'm going to end with. If our immigration system is so complicated and we have this happen, seems like multiple times a year with school shootings, and we say thoughts and prayers, that's great and all. I send my condolences as well, because I never want to experience that. I don't want my own kids to experience that, or my students. But when we constantly have a deadlock in Congress saying we can't get anything passed, let's take a look at our immigration. It's extremely strict and a long process. If we can just make that to just get a gun, maybe that'll make things safer. I just wanted to make that note. I'm not saying take away guns. That's not what I'm arguing. All I'm proposing is, if immigration can be this difficult to get in here, why can't it be that difficult or that long of a wait to obtain a gun? Right? So we don't have these problems. And I know gun activists are going to be popping on this and saying a whole bunch of comments. That's a whole different topic we can talk about. But I just wanted to make that connection. We do have long, lengthy processes. The U.S. is capable of doing it. So with that, we've talked about the push-pull factors. We talked about some of the laws that have been implemented. And today we talked about what the actual immigration system is. Next week, I'm going to try to wrap this up on the immigration topic about the aspects behind immigration. What has caused the mass influx? And we're going to deep dive into the push factors, even the pull factors. And the question at hand is, everyone asks, well, what jobs are they actually taking? They're taking American jobs. Which ones? So with that, thank you. I appreciate all my viewers and subscribers. Thank you. Please share it out. Please pass the word. Please educate it. I know it's getting dark. It's kind of weird. Now it's like a podcast, right? Share everything out. Get registered to vote if you're not. Please vote. Please get out there and vote. Pay attention to the issues. Do your education. Remember, knowledge is power. Enthusiasm throws that switch. Stay tuned for future episodes. Thanks for joining me. I'm Harper. This is the Transformation Perspective. See you next week.